Flight boss, bitch, for sure. You're not listening to the Mind of an Terry's Moon. I'm the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And I'm going to do this video real quick because it ain't going to be too long. This video is about the death of Western astrology, the death of Eastern astrology, the death of Sidereal and Vedic astrology, because for the most part both of these are being utilized for agendas and propaganda purposes. So you need to know that, because really both of these are just two extremes on both sides of one coin. So keep that in mind also, where Eastern, right, think they're coming from a more feminine spiritual nature, where really they're talking about masculine energy, and then on the Western side they think that they're talking about more of the masculine side of things, where really in nature it's more the feminine energy. And we're going to break this all down so you can understand true astrology, and we probably can't even utilize that word anymore because that got so much baggage behind it based upon it being utilized for propaganda. So here's the thing, right? This is the first problem. The first problem with the Western astrologers. You need to stop calling the houses the zodiac sign. Stop calling the houses the same name as the constellation. You see what I'm saying? Because that's one of your mistakes. So anytime you come across somebody's video and it say, okay, you got the, let's say, sun in the 5th house, or sun in Leo, or sun in the 5th house, or moon in Libra, or moon in the 7th house. This is faulty knowledge right there. You need to understand that, because you guys not learning how to separate. The houses is not the constellation. It's not the zodiac sign. The zodiac sign, the constellation, got birthed out of that house, out of that position, out of that time frame, out of that signature, out of that sign. Not the actual signs that get manifested to the point that y'all drawing out the stars that y'all look at. The actual signs when you receive the feminine energy from the receding of being in that space. And that space is an energetic field that start to manifest into shapes and forms. And the shapes and forms that we look at it as far as seasonal changes. And water cycle, that's the water cycle of the chakra that we're on. But before we get too lost into that, that's what you need to understand. That's where Western get lost. Now, so Western, you guys need to stop correlating the houses with the constellation zodiac sign, because the houses gave birth to the constellation zodiac sign. So we know that constellations travel. I hate to utilize the word descend and ascend, but let's say revolve, and it being in a position more distant and far away than the position that it originated at, or where we discovered it. So for the most part, let's look at it like that. So that's what the constellations is doing, not just the sun, moon, Mercury. That's what the constellations is doing also. So Western, understand that. And that's probably a little bit of enlightenment for my Eastern astrologers also, with Vedic and Sidereal, because it's what you need to understand also. Y'all need to stop following lost stars, because here's how y'all truly cling on to masculine energy, where you think you're not. You think you're spiritual. Same way Western cling on to feminine energy, where the Eastern philosophers or atheists or Neil deGrasse or somebody will say that they're not, and things of that nature. Were really the houses. That's the virgin. That's the space. That's the space that's going in. That's the feminine energy. And then you need the masculine energy, which is the light forms, to go into that. And then both of those create a correlation, aka a new orb, a new star. So you are who you are. You get up and travel out of a house into a new space, and you have the same energy. To know where you're going, you have to know where you came from. So it's coming up with that concept, so you don't get lost on two spectrums, Eastern and Western. So like I said, understand noting on all planets, noting progression on all planets, all alignments. So here's the thing, Sidereal, Eastern, Vedic, you guys need to stop following lost stars, because here's the thing, here's where you get into arguments with Western, right? And then you fail to realize that you're utilizing a house system also, but you're more on the masculine energy, aka you only think influences can come from the constellation themselves, where it take a constellation, zodiac sign, going through a space, aka a house, and then that relation itself is what creates an orb, and that's a masculine going into a feminine and creating a cycle, a water cycle, and that's an energetic frame in itself. So keep that in mind. So you guys following lost stars. So for an example, let's say motherfucking the star, well, we know this for a fact, the star constellations, now since y'all clean going to the zodiac and the constellation, the masculine energy, like that's how y'all only can see the influences, hence that's why y'all keep calling people the previous sign. For an example, that's why you call me, I'm an Aries, right? Since I'm at 17 degrees Aries, if we move back 22 degrees based upon the equinoxes and the precession and shit like that, right, then since the Aries star constellation have moved along, the constellation that's in the first house now will be Pisces. So you guys is still lost, because you would call me a Pisces. Not understanding that, no, I am a first house star. I was born when we was traveling through the first house space, the beginning of spring. You see what I'm saying? The middle of spring is the second house. You know what I'm saying? Learn how to separate the houses from the constellation. I'm seeing that's y'all problem. You know what I'm saying? And the third house gave birth to the Gemini constellation. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, just because the Pisces constellation that came up out of the 12th house is now hovering over the first house when I was born, do not mean I'm a Pisces. You see how you get lost by the seeds that the shadow government planted in your head? But we're going to get into that. It don't mean I'm a Pisces. And Western astrologers, and we're going to have to chalk it up to this too, it don't mean I'm an Aries, because Aries is not there anymore. Both of y'all are kind of lost into thinking that the influences is purely based on the constellations themselves. It's based on the relationship of the constellation going through an alignment and a travel, aka a house, a space. And when you bring that feminine and masculine energy together, you end up understanding true astrology, not getting lost on spectrums. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, the best way to explain me, if I'm an Aries, quote unquote, nah, that's Western, or I'm a Pisces, quote unquote, that's Vedic. Throw all of that out the window, and all you have to say is this: I am a person that was born in the first house, influenced, keyword, influenced by the Pisces constellation. So if you understand what the first house is all about, and if you understand what the Pisces constellation is all about, I don't even got to explain my channel. You see what I'm saying? Because all you got to do is watch a few videos, and you'll automatically see that I'm Cardinal Fire, initiating and creating new ways of how to see and feel about personal issues, personality, my personal expression, individuality. But how do I do it? Keyword, how? Based upon what I'm influenced by. I do first house things in a dreamy way, imaginative way, a creative way, a spirited way. And it always have to have meaning and reasoning behind it in a mutable water way. So I know how to make it influence or cause reactions from others based upon my own individual idea. So you see how I utilize the Pisces influence to explain my first house characteristics? You see what I'm saying? So whatever I believe, Neptune energies that I'm influenced by, I feel like I am that first house energy that gave birth to the Aries constellation. So it's technically I'm not an Aries or a Pisces. Technically I'm a first house individual. That's how everybody is if you are a spirit that came into these waters that's surrounded by this 360 space that we are in. You see what I'm saying? So Vedic, Eastern, Sidereal. Stop following lost stars and understand how influences are related. Therefore, you'll be able to understand the dissensions, and I hate to utilize those words, but you'll start to understand that even fixed stars have ascensions and descension. It's just we don't experience those descending times and ascending times at a period in these vessels, quote unquote, motherfucker. When Aries, if Aries is in the second house constellation right now, if it's moving through the second house, hovering over Tauruses right now, that don't mean if you was born in late April and the middle of May, you a Taurus. It just means that the Aries, you're influenced by the Aries star constellations with your practicality. So you are aggressive when it comes to gaining security in your life in some way, shape, or form. You see what I'm saying? But going back to the point of understanding not to get lost, let's say that the summertime, if we only cling on to the star constellations, right, then the summertime is made from the Cancer, Leo, and the Virgo constellation, right? We're gonna utilize this because I'm gonna break down how y'all got lost. But let's just make it simple, right? For an example, it's always gonna be spring, summer, fall, winter, period, at the same time. Same day, houses, different shit. Planetary alignments moving through it. So for the same day, different shit. So for the most part, like, here's the thing. We always going to experience summer. Let's look at it like a day. But there's always different events happening in summer. So we're not going to call summer the same name we call what's bringing those events. That's like, you see what I'm saying? If that's the case, let's keep that there. Because you're going to be like, oh, that makes sense. That is how we utilize astrology, especially a Vedic astrologer. They probably lost right now. All right, okay. But look, listen. We always experience summer, right? So if we was to look at it in your way, in some lost Western astrologers' way, right? Then that's almost like saying that we only experience summertime because of Leo, because of Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. You see what I'm saying? So if we're going by that science, right? Because you probably think that made sense, right? You probably just think that made sense. Yeah, you is right. Every time the sun going through Cancer, Leo, and Virgo, that does bring something. No, that's wrong. You see what I'm saying? Because the way y'all trying to teach it is the stars is moving. So if you was born in the Leo time, then they're going to say you a Cancer. If you was born in the Gemini time, then you see what I'm saying? They're going to say you was the previous sign. They're going to say, no, you actually a Taurus. If you was born a Taurus, they're going to say you actually a Aries. You see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind. So here's where you get lost. But how come summer don't change then? How come we don't experience summer early then? Like last time I checked, spring and summertime been coming a little later. You see what I'm saying? But let y'all tell it, you the previous sign. See what I'm saying? So that don't make goddamn sense. You see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind. If the star constellation is bringing things from equinox precession, because we all know that when we start to talk about the ages, it's going backwards. So you can't utilize the argument that, oh, if the Aries star constellation brings spring and it's in the second house now, then that's why spring come late. The same way how I just explained. No, it's supposed to be backwards. If the constellations we seeing and the sun we moving forward, but the precessions behind it, the backdrop and the fixed stars appear to go backwards, quote unquote, it should be no studies of us being in the age of Aquarius if what I'm talking about ain't right, right? If that's going backwards, then for the most part, if the Aries star constellation brings spring, right, and it's moved in a second house, you cannot utilize that science of, oh, that's why we experiencing spring late, because we got a precession. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, if Aries star constellation brings spring and it's in the house after the fact, then for the most part, we supposed to be experiencing spring earlier. Because we receive light late. Do you understand? See what I'm saying? So you probably don't get what I can break it down even more. You're probably not even equipped to even understand that. But before I even get too lost into that, right? Because it's based upon rotation. That's why we have a midday and a daytime when you think something is rising, but you're really just facing that. And when you think something is descending, but it's really you're just facing away from it based upon the rotation you're on. That's how we have motherfucker time. What we call that? You stay on the eastern or you stay in this location. We have time stamps, whatever the fuck y'all call it, where it be daytime on one side of the world and nighttime on the other side of the world. Now, if we was talking about ascending and descending, it'd be daytime always and nighttime for the whole world, but it's not. So it's letting you know we're dealing with rotation. So if we're rotating in one perspective, you need to know that in the sky we're receiving opposite energies. For an example, if we're on Earth, right, then if we claiming the sun is traveling through, we could get lost in the Vedic and Sidereal right now, but if you're claiming the sun is traveling through Gemini or Taurus, however you want to say it right now, then for the most part, you will still lose the perspective that you're on Earth. So for the most part, we're in Scorpio. We're in motherfucking, you see what I'm saying? We're in Scorpio. We're in motherfucking, between Scorpio and goddamn it, the Scorpio time or motherfucking Sagittarius or Sagittarius. We're on the opposite end. So for the most part, that's why we are experiencing what we think is a water cycle. So that's that mixed reverse energy of what death and transformation and birth is. But for the most part, here's the thing. You guys have got a seeds planted in your head by agents, right? Agents based upon like Neil deGrasse, Bill Nye, a science guy. You know, who gives a fuck what Carl Reagan thought when he was alive about astrology and shit like that? Because for the most part, these people may not even know that they're agents. But for the most part, they get utilized based upon their indoctrination, their upbringing, and the schoolings that they have went through. So for the most part, they're the right person in the position to be seen as the face to present some type of new knowledge that the shadow government want the whole world to be in. Now, they will even utilize this word shadow government that I'm utilizing right now in order to plant seeds in y'all head to make y'all think as soon as y'all hear that word, it's conspiracy theories type shit like this, and don't listen to people like me, and then you're building knowledge on that other than besides the fact of what's actually going on. You see what I'm saying? Because once we start to talk about, I don't care what kind of words you're using, whether you talk about astrology wise, and then we're talking about motherfucking how it affects human affairs and influence and seasonal changes, and astronomy wise, how you made a stardust. It's still talking about how it affect you and your human affairs. Because if you want to see atheists, a lot of times y'all get y'all knowledge from philosophical people who ain't really atheists and things of that nature, but they just be presented like they're atheists to be all heroes, not knowing that for the most part, that's the root cause you're going to end up going to, because you don't believe in astrology, and then everything you're taught, all these people that's teaching you your knowledge, being an atheist, is going to lead you into astronomy, and now astronomy is the reason why you're influenced by the planets. But you're saying the same thing as astrology. It's just you're changing the words. You're saying one brain chemical lead to another, give information to another brain chemical, and that gives information to another brain chemical. And then if that chemical if you're gonna go ahead and tell me that chemical is made out of atoms and hydrogen and shit like that, then for the most part, what the fuck is you talking about? You talking about what astrologers are talking about, just on a more indoctrinated level. I don't get it. It's the same shit. So they sit there and have you believing in astronomy and hate on astrology, yet they're developing medicines and shit like that based upon seasonal transits and the way that we're interacting with the planets and what we're made out of. We make the plants and the leaves and shit. And then when you get an astrologer, right? Here's where you get how they plant the seeds in your head also. They give you faulty arguments like 13 sign, where we cannot have 13 houses. It's only 360. That's 12, if you understand numerology. So all your books is made that way. So don't let Neil deGrasse come mix your head around not understanding that, right? And then they get you lost into these kind of concepts and things of that nature. And then have you not understanding what's going on, that something could just be part of the system. And then they utilize atheists and stuff like that to come here and criticize stuff, not knowing what they're actually criticizing. So keep that in mind also, because here's another seed that they have planted in your head, right? They planted in your head that astrology is about future telling and things of that nature. It's purely about understanding your chakras, your emotional influences, period. But when you get someone in a position like Neil deGrasse, Bill Nye, a science guy, whatever like that, they will plant seeds into the dumb, deaf, blind sheep and weak minds. People who don't have time to learn things for themselves. So based upon the shadow government, on the things that they presented to y'all to make y'all feel secure, they put these things in front of the faces that they use to rock y'all to sleep because you don't want to do the information yourself. For an example, the shadow government presented things to make y'all feel security, aka you need a certain level of credentials. You had to go to school for a certain amount of years. So this is how they call you a real astronomer or real something. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a person that's talking like me, but you ain't went to school or you don't have no credentials, this is another seed that the shadow government planted in people, the dumb, deaf, blind sheep and weak head, to not listen to these individuals because they may not know what they're talking about. So you need to listen to someone who may know what they're talking about, aka people who got indoctrinated, went to school and had these credentials. But you need to understand, these are the same people that's being taught what the shadow government wants you to believe. And if you don't understand that, then you're part of the reason of why y'all keep getting ruled by governments and y'all keep having to get up and vote because your living conditions is not suitable to how you actually spiritually see fit. But then now they're giving you arguments to think that spirituality ain't even real. So you and so many other kind of loops, you're lost. That's another video. So like I said, they'll sit here and present dumb, faulty arguments talking about there's another sign, not understanding how we attract influences, and then try to utilize Ophiuchus and dumb, faulty arguments as this is why astrology don't work, and you can't tell someone's personality or something like that due to the fact of their basis of explaining it. Not even, so you could tell that Neil deGrasse, you could tell that he is into it, and he's just utilizing the astronomy purposes for some form of a propaganda. You know what I'm saying? Because he said he had numerology readings. He said he had, so when he come up with his logic, you could tell that he's building his logic to defend. Like he's not building his logic on, okay, if you believe this or if you don't. If you don't, that's that. Because there's plenty different ways of how you understand everything. This is why people believe math, believe the Bible, believe everything. So there's a truth in anything, right? The moment he's coming out of his mouth utilizing arguments that's old, outdated arguments and things of that nature. Because the moment y'all started to see on the internet, everybody start talking about, oh, you a 13 sign, you're no longer this sign anymore. The astrologers that started to preach that's like the truth seekers, the conscious community, or the first new agers and shit like that. Y'all are the first people that the shadow government know gonna eat up something. You know what I'm saying? Without understanding. So you think you're going to cling on to something because everybody else is going to get to this propaganda information. So you think since you got your perspective of it, you got one up on someone. This is what Eastern philosophers be doing a lot of times. But you need to understand this also. You know what I'm saying? Because they sit here and create an argument saying, nah, this is how we always correlated it. No, look, the fixed stars and all the constellations was relative to the houses. Then once it started to separate it, that's when we attracted the information from it 2,000 years ago, and then we started to split up into astronomy and astrology, aka astrology and astronomy. Those words itself, the reason they got baggage on it is because those words are utilized for propaganda. It ain't even astrology. It's not even motherfucking astronomy. It's motherfucking life. And get that straight first. So once you start hearing a person, oh, astrology, and then they start to talk about it like it's wrong or something like that, you need to know that was a seed being planted. And this person is just being utilized, but they think they're coming across some information to wake somebody up. And then you got the other side of the coin. You know what I'm saying? And then it get all mixed and mingled where you need to understand that motherfucker astrology and astronomy are propaganda and agenda-filled practices, where really it's just life. And when you start to understand shapes, forms, micro, macro, the interactions between influences, it doesn't matter what you call it. You just understand motherfucking life. And that's what the fuck we getting ready to get into, because all this other motherfucking shit out here, we starting to see these motherfuckers is utilizing this shit to blind people. And now I need to ask Neil deGrasse, okay, now what is your purpose of having those interviews now? Because it can't be for the sake of just truly understanding it. You know what I'm saying? Because for the most part, you put yourself into a circumstance where you made a psychological attempt to create some type of logic around why astrology don't make sense. You didn't make a understanding logic. You made a logic of why I don't. So you're pushing something. That's what that means. See, and it took an astrologer to know that. You see what I'm saying? So you can't even utilize no argument. What I'm talking about. Otherwise, you lying. Flight boss, bitch. Goddamn air.